Okay, hi everyone. So for this video, I'll discuss about the data collection and the sampling methods. So before we move into this methods of data collection and sampling, I will first refresh you guys with the steps in statistical analysis. So before we arrive at our analysis or our prediction or observation, we want to first discuss our research problem. No? So we want to define what is our research problem. So what question do we have, and the next one will be how do we sample or how do we collect the data to answer that research question, and then how do we present this data. So there are different types of data, there are ways to treat them, and then the analysis. Also, we will utilize here the descriptive statistics and the inferential statistics at this point. So we will analyze, we will find the average, for example, and what could its significance be with regards to the inference to the population. Now let's talk about the first way of data collection, the experiment. Now in the experiment, we usually have a control over the environment. Okay, so usually you have a control group, we have an experimental group, and usually experiments, if done correctly, will have a high validity, no, meaning it will be more truthful since usually experiments are controlled. So what are the elements of an experiment? So we have different elements in an experiment. We have the the explanatory variable. So this is synonymous to the independent variable. Actually, they are the same thing. So this represents the cause in the experiment. And then the response variable, or in other words, the dependent variable, is the effect on the experiment. Now, there are also different things that could affect the experiment that are not usually focused in the study, but still affect, no, the experiment, and they are called extraneous variable. Now, again, we have the cause, we have the effect, and we have this thing, no, usually the unmeasured variable, which is the extraneous variable. So let's say we have a scenario wherein we want to determine the effect of sunlight on the height of the mango plant. So you can imagine if we have a higher sunlight, it might grow faster than the one without the sunlight, right? So the independent variable or the explanatory variable can be modified, no? Which is the amount of sunlight, and then the height of the plant is the response variable or the effect. So we have the cause, we have the effect. And then for the treatment, we can design our experiment to have a group, no, of mango plant with no exposure to sunlight, and another group with exposure to sunlight. And we want to see the difference in their height, no, after the experiment. So there are also things that could not be usually not isolated very well, that could still affect the response variable. And other things that could also affect this experiment, but usually we have no control of. No? So the amount of water, no, we can control this, and the type of soil. For this scenario, we can control this, but there are different things in the experiment that sometimes we cannot control, no, but we could minimize the effect of that. So again, we have the response, the explanatory, and the extraneous variable. Now, let's imagine a scenario, no, another scenario here again. So a researcher wishes to study the effect of minoxidil on male baldness. The subjects are balding male patients from 40 to 45 years old and weighing between 135 to 145 pounds. He randomly assigns the male patients into one of the two groups. The first group of male patients applies minoxidil on their heads daily for 3 months. Okay, so 3 months they tried on some of the group, or a group is tried with this new product, and then the control group is the group that does not receive the treatment of minoxidil. After 3 months, they measure the male patient's hair, and compare it with length of hair before the application of minoxidil. So we can already see here what is the treatment of this experiment, no? or this data collection. So in here they isolated the two different groups. The control group represents the one that doesn't have the medication, no? This maybe the ointment, no, for the hair. And then the other group, the experimental group, applies this treatment to the hair. And they will try to see if there is a difference, no, in the hair length of their two groups, to see if possibly, no, there is a correlation that suggests the effect of this ointment to the growth of hair of the patients. Now, again, recalling this, there are extraneous variables that could affect this experiment, and usually one way to eliminate that effect is the use of randomization. So instead of picking people, no, in each group, some of them might be much healthier than the other ones. Some people have this certain diet, no. Okay, so instead of choosing, no, directly choosing, we could randomize the people involved in the study to reduce the effect of these extraneous variables. Okay, and what we could do here as well is we could just directly isolate, no? We could possibly only investigate this certain kind of, let's say, or reduce the to reduce the extraneous the effect of the extraneous variables. We could isolate also some of the things incorporated with that. So maybe also the race, no? So maybe we'll focus on Filipinos, or we could focus on the let's say the American study. So there are different ways to isolate the extraneous variables. Okay, so another thing about the data collection, or another type of data collection, is through the surveys. So data are collected by sampling some of the populations of interest, and usually surveys are utilized when we could not control, no? If we could not control the population or the scenario, we just get the data directly from this specific group, no, through sampling. Now, again, no, so the survey is a method of collecting data by asking people questions. So basically, we have the population, and we just sample this population through a sample, no? So we could not get everyone to answer our survey, so which is called the census, no? If we could collect everyone's data, we just introduce the sample, and this is called the sample survey. Now, with regards to the people involved in the survey, they're called the respondents, and the questionnaire, no, is obviously the one the questionnaire handles all the information that is needed for the data collection. Okay, so usually we have some biases, no, that we call, that could affect the validity of our study. So sometimes people are not that truthful, no, in their answers. Okay, that is one of the downsides of a survey. So one example of that maybe is to get the people's, or the population's most likely presidential candidate that they want to vote. Ano? So let's say on May 2022, on the May 22 election, the Pulse Asia has conducted survey beforehand to see what the respondents or what are the preferential candidates of the respondents, no? So some of the respondents might want to vote for BBM or Denny or whoever. Okay, so you will have a percentage, just like what you see in the news. Okay, so there are different ways to collect this data through surveys, and we have the personal interview. So the the researcher basically just asks them one by one to personal interview, or it could be a phone interview, through your cell phones. Okay, and you can also utilize questionnaires. So when you have a questionnaire, it will be much easier for both of the researcher and the subject, or the respondent. And then for online surveys, it will be conducted online through emails, okay, or with focus groups, you can also do that, and so on. So, moving on from experiments and surveys, we have another way of data collection, which is the observation method. So in here, we do not have an interaction, no? In contrast with surveys, we don't have an interaction with the scenario or the event. We are just an observer of this event. So we just take down the notes, we just measure the things that can be observed, and usually, if the data is readily available, we can just do this directly. Or the scenario is available, we can just do this directly. So one example of that will be, previously there was an eruption in the Mount Taal, or in the World Trade Center terrorism in New York. So we can see the behavior patterns of the people during that disasters, and maybe we can say something about that pattern, And another thing about this is maybe we could observe the growth of plants. Okay, so let's say we could measure their height, with respect to time, what we utilize as our fertilizers. Okay. So usually there should not be, or we are just observers, so we should not interact with our subjects. So we do not have to interact with our plants, so that we could eliminate some form of bias usually. And then, and also the adjustment of college freshman to campus life by observing the behavior of freshmen in various settings. So there was a transition from the high school life to the college years. So how, or what are the behavior patterns that we could observe between this transition? We could conduct an observation of that. Okay, so other than that, we have again experiment, we have the survey, the observation. We can also use archives, in general, an archive. So these are stored data that are available, usually available in government and private institutions. So an example of that, let's say we want to find out some information about the finance of, let's say, the Philippines, throughout the years, we can ask the central bank for this data. Or let's say we want to determine how many people are in the state, in this, or how many people in the population in the Philippines has an in this is in the group of this age group. Now let's say how many people are in between 20 to 25 years old. We can determine that using an archive, by the PSA. Okay, so we have different sources of archive data, government or private institutions. Okay, so that will be all for data collection. Let's move on with the sampling design. So again, we could not ask everyone to our with regards our research problem. So we have to design a way to collect this data in the sampling. So there are four basic ways to collect data, and we will start with a simple random sample. Let's say you have how many people are this? Okay, so approximately, so we have four. So we have 12 plus 3, so 15. So let's say we have 15 in the population. We want to just sample a few of the population we can create a ballot, no? Kumbaga, bunutan, a raffle, no? So there are 15 numbers there, and then you will pick them randomly, no? So picking this randomly, okay, we have this simple random sample. So if you could pick randomly any one of the population, you could pick one of them randomly, then you have a simple random sample. And another way, no, is to use a random number generator. So you can use a random number generator to figure out whom should you ask, no? So that is again the simple random sample. For a systematic random sample, no? So this is some random sample as well. In a systematic sample, let's say again we have 15 respondents or 15 population, no? Or 15 population of respondents, and we want to just find the 5 respondents. So what we can do here is to, let's say, find a random number from 1 to 5, and then we could randomize this sequence by creating an interval in between the population. So let's say you have a list of people, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So with systematic sample, you can, let's say, pick every odd numbers, no? Or you can pick divisible by 2, no? And so on. So that is a systematic sample. You have equal intervals in the list. Okay? So simple random sample, systematic sample. And then moving on, we have the stratified sample. In the stratified sample, let's say in the 15 the population of 15 people, let's say they have different courses, no? Or they are in different programs. So some of them are in engineering, some of them are in business, some of them are in technology, some of them are in education. So you can pick, let's say, 2 in engineering, 2 in business, 2 in technology, 2 in education. So that is the stratified sample. Okay, so that is the stratified sample. And then for cluster sample, okay, so let's mix things a bit, no? Again, pero let's support what we did in stratified sample. Again, let's say we have engineering, business, technology, and education. So in cluster sample, we will only sample, let's say, engineering and business only. So that is the people that are readily available. Actually, there is another thing called the convenience sampling, but we won't discuss that anymore. The cluster, everyone in the group in engineering should be part of the sampling. So everyone in the engineering program will be sampled. Everyone in the business department will be sampled. So the difference in between stratified and cluster. So in stratified, everyone, each of the groups, 4 groups will be sampled. So let's say we will get 2 of them for each group. But for cluster sample, we will get this engineering group, everyone to participate, in this business group participate. Okay? So let's have an example on scenarios wherein we utilize this sampling designs, and let's analyze or classify what sampling design they use. So, okay, so for this first example, find the average of IQ of students at a local school. A researcher who writes every student's name on a piece of paper, put them into a hat, and then select 50 names from the hat. Okay, so what is this? So since we have a random, a random ballot, we have a raffle basically, then this is a simple random sample. Okay, or a simple random sampling method. And then moving on to determine average number of people living in each house in the city, the researcher went through the phone book and selected every 20th person listed. So if we want to figure out, if we want to record every interval, at an interval, then this will be a systematic sampling. Okay? And then for the next one, suppose you want to conduct a sample survey of the TIP student population for the current semester. You request for the names of those currently enrolled from the registrar's office. The names are all numbered and listed in alphabetical order. You use an online 4-digit random number generator. Select the 50 students you will include in your study. A random number of 0, 1 to 3 in case of interview. The 1 to 3 students listed in the registered list. Okay. So a random number, no, again, I mentioned the random number generator last time. So if you have a way to randomize the picking of your sample, then is the simple random sampling. So there is no system incorporated with the sampling, but it is random, and then it is a simple random sampling. Okay, so to find average length of movies made since 1960, research divides all the movies by year and then takes a random sample of movies from each year. So we have different year groups. So let's say 1961, 1962, and so on. And then the researcher, let's say, gets 5 movies in each of the year. Then this will be stratified something. Okay? So to find a population of certain years, a researcher takes a random sample of cities and then samples every liquor store in those cities. So popularity of certain beers. Okay, sample of cities. Okay, so we only selected a city, no? So we have the population, the whole population is the whole world, no? Since the researcher want to, it is actually vague, no? But we assume that the population is the whole, no? The whole population of the world. But the researcher only choose to find a sample within these selected cities. So this will be a cluster sampling. Okay, so that will be all for this video. Thank you guys and see you during class.